One of the hardest parts of being a musician or any kind of artist is creating something that comes from deep inside of us. It's very personal. And then we choose to share that part of ourselves with the world. What's so hard about this that we never talk about is that we all have a deep fear of being rejected. We all have this deep seated feeling of not being good enough, and it scares us. We're all afraid of the hate messages or the anonymous critics that sit behind their phones or computers or keyboards, whatever it may be, that can attack us and hurt us with no chance of giving your own feedback to them or even having anything you can do about it. You just have to take it. That scares us. And then, of course, there's the biggest critic of all, ourselves. And sometimes we just don't know how to handle that. Maybe having the skills to conquer all this advice and feedback and the critiques could be a vital skill. Perhaps we should have a think on that. Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we are going to be talking about dealing with criticism and how to take advice and deal with critics, and how that's a very vital skill in the career of a musician or any artist, and how sometimes we just don't pay enough attention to how to do this. And it comes down to really being able to be mindful of how you're receiving criticism, how you're taking the feedback that you're getting, and not letting it derail your direction that you're going or meeting the goals that you want to do, or even just sharing the music that you want to share with the world. Let's get down to the 5 steps that I've developed here and I've just really championed here to help dealing with criticism. So step number 1, and something that we're going to be referencing through this entire list of how to deal with criticism and feedback and all that kind of stuff, is know yourself and know your goals. So the first thing you really have to take into consideration is that knowing yourself is key. So when people say things to you that can be construed as criticism or feedback or whatever it may be, a lot of the times the first reaction we have is just to be defensive, and that's just human nature. But the important part is that as this happens, you find yourself, rearing up and getting ready for a fight, or, a little bit of offense starts to be taken. It's important that you, instead of biting the person's head off or whatever it may be, stepping away and learning what it is that they said that, triggered your mind, made you instantly start to reel back and feel hurt. And the more times that you can start to address yourself and understand why this is making me upset, where's the truth in this, that kind of thing, the more that you can start to identify when it's happening and really start to get to the important things that are coming across, the real truth nuggets that are buried in there, and not deal with the other side of it, which is just us and our human nature dealing with the things that hurt us. Let's just share some examples. If you're listening on this, it's not clearly obvious if you have never met me or not watching this on YouTube. I'm a very big guy, and I get those kind of criticisms all the time. And part of that is that I will hear that, hey, you're a big guy and you're doing this, or, hey, you're a large man. What's going on there? And as that's attached to other parts that they're either saying you do this very well or such and so forth, my mind only focuses on the one thing. And the reason that it hurts is because it's true. It's just the truth. It's something that I have to deal with or battle with every day of my life. But it's not a bad thing. It's just knowing that that's a trigger of yours or something that you can dwell on and not take the good things because you're focused on the bad. Knowing those kind of things really, really helps. And it allows you to take the good before you just delve into the bad. Another part of this, of knowing yourself and knowing your goals, of course, is having defined goals. And the reason this really helps is that when people are giving this feedback, when they're sharing something with you, when they choose to give you some sort of of information about the art you've shared. Having a defined goal makes it much easier to kind of just swim past the things that aren't really friendly or aren't really helpful to you. So, if, for instance, if they're saying, hey, your music's kind of feeling a little bit like you're not ready, maybe you shouldn't be doing this full time, maybe just let it develop a little bit longer, those kind of things. If you've already got a goal set in mind, and you know that you have a plan, you're going to be, doing your part-time job and just kind of build your career until you're ready to go full time, those kind of things aren't going to bother you. They're not going to derail you. You're just going to move on straight past that onto whatever the good things they might say, or whatever. It's not going to stop you from what you're doing and make you reassess everything going on. So having defined goals can really make a big difference in how you take criticism, how you take advice, and it really can help you avoid when those things start to sting. When you hear the things that maybe you don't want to hear but you need to hear, it gets a little bit easier. It helps you just define that thick skin. It gives you that suit of armor, because you know what your goal is, you know how you're getting there, and you can pick and choose what they're sharing, what is useful for that and what's not. So that's the first most important step, is knowing yourself and knowing your goals. Once you have those defined, we can move on to the second part, which is to embrace constructive criticism. So we've gotten to the point where we know, the things that might hurt us. We know the things, we can identify the useful parts. And now it becomes important that if you're going to grow as a person, it doesn't matter what field you're in, what you do, you need to embrace constructive criticism. And the whole point of this is that you can't grow and become better without some outside perspective. You can get to a certain point, but you're going to find it stalls. There's a plateau you're going to hit that you can't push past, because you're not learning enough from the outside. You're not taking in enough information about what works and what doesn't. And you just find yourself being stagnant. And especially in something in like the arts and music, anything like that, we are doing this, trying to make a connection with other humans, and that's the hard part. If you're not getting that constructive criticism, you're not really engaging with others. You're not really finding a way to better connect with people. You're not finding what resonates with them. And it's really important that you find a way to embrace this constructive criticism. So a big part of this is being an engaged listener. So if somebody comes up to you with a little bit of feedback of, hey, I just watched your show, it was fantastic, there's a lot of covers in there, you're very talented, but do you do a lot more originals, anything like that? If you don't know yourself, if you've gone through step one where you don't know yourself and know your goals, that could hurt. And maybe you might focus on that, and it could be something that sets you back for a bit. But if you've gone through step one and you know that this is part of what you're doing, and your goal is that you're going to be, writing your originals, producing your own originals, sharing those soon, you can be an engaged listener and listen to the good parts of that. That you've got the music. They said you put on a great show. They like to hear you. They clearly like something you did with the show, maybe your presence or how you were entertaining in some fashion. They just want more of you, not some other artist through you. Those kind of things, you're really easy to get to the good points because you were engaged in listening. And then the other part of that engagement is to ask clarifying questions. So in our example we just used, when somebody says to you, hey, you had a great show, but you did a lot of covers, I'd like you to do more originals. Ask some clarifying questions. Well, thanks. I'm so grateful for you telling me this and sharing that. And yeah, I do have a lot of covers. I'm still learning. I'm still in the early process of developing a fan base and getting my feet under me. So what did you like about the covers? What part of my show did you really engage with? What parts kind of bored you or you didn't like? Ask those clarifying questions, and that's really going to set apart how useful any feedback or criticism you get is going to be, because you now really know what they meant versus you filling in those lines. And as humans, we're really great at just filling in those blank spaces with things that we think they mean. We always really tend towards the negative when maybe that's not always the case. So the more that you can ask those clarifying questions and dig a little bit deeper, it really helps. The important part with those clarifying questions, though, is to be very respectful. Like I said, sometimes we get in that mindset where it might hurt a little bit what they've said, and it's like you don't want to start out with "what do you mean such and such and such," where it becomes kind of an attack. Or you got to be respectful. Start out with this next part. And this is one of the ones that if you take nothing else away from all of this, this is the most important one. Be thankful. Thank you so much for sharing, and then turn it positive. Whatever they may have said that may have, been a little bit negative or, constructive, turn it positive. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, you're right. I do a lot of covers. You're right. I'm still just trying to figure this out, but you sharing with me really helps. And you can share even your goals. Like, yeah, I do want to be out there playing more originals. I want to have my own original album sometime soon. And then they become an engaged fan, and they feel like part of the process, and you're building an audience doing just these steps. Okay, so we've gone through the first two steps now. Now let's talk about this step number 3. And this is the one that sometimes it's just good to hear that it's okay to do this, and that is filter out unhelpful criticism. So because we know ourselves, we've done that first step, and we know what our goals are, this step becomes so much easier. And as you get better and go through this more and more, this is definitely one of those things where the more times you do it, the better you get at it. It's not something you can read about or theorize on. It just has to be an experience. And this one's really important. Filtering out the unhelpful criticism is just those people that, first and foremost, just want to be negative. They just come at you with that instant energy, and you can feel it of, that show is fine. Like, I've seen better, or, those kind of things that you instantly know of, like, yeah, that's fine. It's okay. Like, that's great. And if you're kind of getting that energy of they already have that mindset, it's okay to just be like, thanks, and walk away, just be respectful and nice. But, it's not something you have to delve into deeper, especially if they start things that are extremely vague, and there's just nowhere for you to dig deeper and get something meaningful out of that. That's the time where it's just like, okay, it's okay. Let it roll off your back, and it's okay. Walk away from that kind of thing. So, and the whole point about this is we have to be told as artists and as humans that we can't and shouldn't try to please everybody. It's just not possible. It's not a thing that is achievable by anybody. One of the quotes that somebody was telling me is that you could be the most beautiful and tasty peach in the world, but there's always going to be somebody out there who doesn't like peaches. It just doesn't matter. You're not always going to be everybody's type of music. You're not going to be their genre of music. But if you can find a way to connect with everybody on some level, that's where it really comes in. Music is about finding connections, not validations. And that's really where the biggest changes in your life and as a artist come in. When you go to a concert of genre that you never really like to and you don't listen to, but you get those goosebumps when somebody starts belting out this amazing vocal line and you're like, oh, wow, that is talent. Wow. That's when you know it's more about the connections, about invoking these emotions and these feelings. It's not about being validated as this artist, or I'm better than you are, those kind of things. You really want to avoid that. So it's important that as we're going through this, you really just need to start digging for the truth nuggets, as I say. You always got to dig deeper into whatever somebody's saying, and as you do, just be able to know if there's something useful in there as you're digging for the truth nuggets, or if you start to feel that there's just that negative feedback coming, you're getting that feeling there's nothing good that's going to come out of this. it's okay to just walk away and say thank you, and that's good enough. So from there, let's go on to step 4, where in this step we've talked about dealing with those that are either, family or just, audience members, fans, people that come up to you. But there's another way to deal with feedback and advice, and that is to seek it out. And the important part about this is that as you're developing these skills, you can really start to learn how to shape what you're looking for and get the responses that are helpful to you and meaningful to you. So as you have your goals and you know what they are, and you need to seek out people that you trust, people that are in your area where you're working, and seek them out and ask them, how is my show going? How's my sound? How are my originals? How are they stacking up? Where am I at? And as you talk to people that you trust and know and are going to have meaningful advice to share with you, just be same thing. Just follow those steps of, digging deeper, asking clarifying questions, dig for those truth nuggets. And, as you're doing this, just be aware that they might share things with you that are working for them at that time in their career. And I find that to be some of the most meaningful feedback and advice you can get, but it might not apply to your career at that moment. Just tuck those away. That's great. But seeking out advice can be a great way to hone and get really meaningful feedback without dealing with the unknowns or people you don't know or how to take what they're saying. So that's another great way you can do this. So that's step 4. Step 5 is just as equally important as any of these. Apply the feedback each and every day, each and every time. So you've gone to the trouble of getting the feedback, taking the criticism, learning these things, sifting out what is and what isn't useful. The important part about that afterwards is just to apply that in everything you do. And to do this, the best advice I can give you from one person to another, from one musician to another, is always go into every project with something that you're going to do different than the last time, something that you're going to improve from the time before. And this can apply to everything in your life, but especially in the arts and music, this really helps. If you just go into each project like, hey, I'm going to improve my guitar sound this time, or I really want to improve on my lyrics in this song. I want to make them a little more deeper. I want to have them relate more to everybody. Those kind of things, going in and just addressing 1 to 2 things, but being consistent with what you've already done, but improving 1 to 2 things every time is how you get to greatness. It's how you get to those big goals. And like I said, that probably applies to everything. Even just in my journey here on this channel in YouTube land or doing podcasts, I get, very friendly but harsh critiques of the video quality is horrible, or this, that, or the other. And it's not that they're wrong. It's just, same thing. Turn it around. Give it that positive spin. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to get better each and every day, and my equipment's not the best, but I'm getting better, or we're investing here or there. And each video I go into the next one saying, I'm going to get better at this. I'm going to improve my video quality. I'm going to improve my lighting. I'm going to improve the coloring, which is really hard for somebody who's colorblind, but that's neither here nor there. But those kind of things, that's where the big difference comes in. So, and be willing to readjust your goals if it's needed. So as you apply these things and you say, I'm going to change 1 or 2 things, it's okay to readdress your goals from the beginning, from that step number 1, going back and saying, hey, I'm getting a lot of feedback that's saying that maybe I'm reaching a little bit too far and I'm not quite ready for this goal. Let's just readjust it a little bit and set the goal a little bit different or a little bit lower. Let's set that bar a little lower. And that's okay. And that's just being honest with yourself, which is all part of that first step. So, just following the cycle of 1 through 5, it'll work every single time. The last thing I want to leave you with here is one that maybe most of us don't do enough. And even, here with our channel, we're trying to get better about it, and we're finding ways to remedy it. But celebrating the small and big wins in whatever you're doing really makes it a sustainable thing. So just have ways to acknowledge the small wins. If it's the first time you're putting out a song, celebrate that. Stop and listen to it. Share it with people. Have a listening party with your family and friends. That's it's a small win, but it's really a big win. I know you want to put that first album out. You want to be playing those big sold out shows, but you got to celebrate the wins when they come along. Otherwise, it's just too much of a grind. Life's too short for that kind of stuff. So really take the time, celebrate the small wins, share it with your friends and family. Tell them what it means to you. It's okay. Yeah, it's cheesy sometimes, but it feels good. And sometimes life just needs to feel good. So remember these small steps, and it really can help. I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to watch this or listen on the podcast. Of course, we have more videos for you to watch, more podcasts for you to listen to. We have a Patreon if you'd like to stop. There's lots of free stuff there, just PDFs and walkthroughs and checklists. All of it's free, no money, no signups, just take it and use it. We just want you to succeed. So please, if you would, take a little bit of time and subscribe or like the video or whatever it is that can help us grow. It's really been making a big difference. We've been seeing a lot of growth, and especially with the YouTube and all that, really starting to see some numbers. And thank you guys. Thank you so much. It's so meaningful. It makes us feel great, and we're going to keep doing this. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. So bye.